Joining the podcast is the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, longtime Birmingham Barons voice and ESPN broadcaster, Mr. Curt Bloom. CB, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Sky, most of that, by the way, is a myth. Legend, that's up for debate. A long time, no debate there. But in terms of, myth, yeah, let people make their decision.
Well, you're definitely a legend in my book. You started in minor league baseball in 1988, and you started with the Birmingham Barons in 1992. Over those, 3 decades of calling games for the Barons, I'm sure you've seen so many guys come through, so many coaches. What was the most memorable experience that you can think of over those 3 decades?
Well, you start every year wanting and hoping that you'll participate in a championship. So I've got four rings with the Barons, so they stand out. But I've always thought, and I've always said, and I've always mentioned this, that the one single standout game that I ever did was not a Jordan game. It was not a championship, but it was a no-hitter. And it was my first one, especially double A. It was in a pennant race, and it was a 1-0 game. So everything was there. And I just remember by the eighth inning, just rifling through the record books, just making sure I said the right things and knew who the last no hitter was, et cetera, et cetera. And we got to it was on the road in Memphis, and we got to the bottom of the ninth inning. Our pitcher, by the way, got to the big leagues. His name is Luis Andujar. And interestingly enough, in the bottom of the ninth, with a 1-0 lead and a no hitter and a pennant race, a must win game, he struck out the side. And the last guy he faced was Homer Bush, who also had a nice big league career too. So that one, you can see the memory recall on that one. That was the most exciting game. A single solo 9 inning no hitter, no combination or anything like that.
Is the most impressive thing about that the pressure that he faced and still delivered?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And when you think of today's game, first of all, a complete game. No one throws complete games. All right? No, you don't even come close to that. The second of all, okay, I threw a complete game, but I allowed a home run, or a home run, made one bad pitch out of 115. Um, so that is the second. And then to think that there wasn't a bunt single in a game like that, there wasn't a flare that dropped in front of your shortstop and left fielder. It's just incredulous to put its scope of how defining and how difficult that is to do.
I believe you'll have to refresh my memory. We were together with the Barons last year and won the Southern League. But I believe Iriarte threw a no hitter, and that was the first no hitter at the new stadium or something like that.
Yeah, and if I'm not, it was a combination though. He combined. I'm not thinking of the relief pitcher, but he had six no-hit innings. What takes it away a little bit, I do remember that, and you'll remember he had a lot of walks, and that kind of skews it a little bit, just a little bit. And then somebody finished it off. I'm not looking at it right now, but they had 1-2, and I remember but I still have the ball that was supposed to be signed by the two pitchers and then our catcher. It was sitting in my radio booth, and I never went downstairs to
I
get it
believe
signed.
was it Iriarte, Michael Turner, and
Yeah,
Garrett
Turner was a catcher.
Shonley, something like that.
Garrett, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. Yeah, Shanley, yes. Yeah,
Wh-
because here's a neat thing. Shanley started what would be a no-hitter in Charlotte and finished a no-hitter in Birmingham. That in the same year. That's
that's
pretty wild. That's a pretty good resume right there.
for sure. Well, over the 3 decades you spent in minor league baseball, just minor league baseball in general, or maybe broadcasting, what's something that you've seen that's kind of evolved over time?
Power and velocity, the two things that people talk about being strong. First of all, as batters, you see the eighth and ninth guy in a lineup still with 5, 6 home runs. You see guys, what I amused at the last couple of years, guys with 20 at bats all year long, and three of them are home runs. You can tell something's going on. And the same thing with velocity. And I think about this a lot. I remember it was my 2 years in Prince William, which would be 89 and 90. And I remember that the max velocity in the minors was about 86, 87. And there were rumors and whispers and stories of one guy touching 90. Whoa, whoa, that guy must be like the hardest thrower ever. And now the scary thing is guys with good fastballs are throwing their changeup at 90 miles an hour, let alone their fastball. Um, we've seen 101, 102, Ben Joyce at 102, 103. So the evolution of both the power hitter and the power on the mound, probably the two biggest changes that I've noticed.
Well, speaking of power hitting, you lived through the steroid era. Um, did Jose Canseco and a lot of those guys stick out like a sore thumb in that aspect?
We didn't know it at the time, number one. Number two, some of those drugs, most of them were not illegal at that time. There was a point, Skylar, where I read as much much of the biographies that I could, learning more and more and more about that, so I can understand it. And Canseco's book is really, it's like the Bible. You've got to read Juiced by him, and because it will tell you everything. Then there was the book. It was the guy who tried giving Bonds and following Bonds the test. He was hired by Major League Baseball, an undercover agent, and there was a book that came out of that, and others that came out of it as well. But again, if you look at baseball chronologically, what they were doing was not banned at that time. We would ban it, baseball would ban it after we found out the history behind it and what it could do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll have to check out that book. I'm a big reader.
Hmm?
Um,
Yeah.
you may agree with this. My favorite baseball book, and I think is the greatest baseball book, is Ball Four by Jim Bouton.
Hmm. And that's not typical that a young guy would say ball four is their best. It's very atypical. That was one of the first tell-all baseball books. Read it. I haven't read it. It's been quite a long time. It's been on my list in my mind to say, let's go back and revisit that book. But yeah, that was a classic about the Seattle Mariners, and I think they were the pilots. They were the pilots back then. And one guy was very interesting. One of my partners later on in life was the Southern League president and owner of the Huntsville Stars. That's Don Mincher, and Mincher's in the book. So, and he was not very happy about it, by the way. Not happy. But back then, you never, ever, ever, if it happened in the locker room, it stayed in the locker room.
Well, it sparked my interest because me and you both share our love for the Yankees. So I wanted to read up on Billy Martin and Whitey Ford and Mickey Mantle and
Mhm.
all those guys. But you said that you're not a legend. I disagree with that. You've taught some broadcasting classes and stuff at Miles College and Birmingham Southern. Is there
Mhm.
one thing that you teach your students that you might have wished that you would have learned a long time ago, maybe learned the hard way?
Wonderful question. No, I was blessed with the number one tool, and that's passion. And I loved since I was 9 years old what I wanted to do. So that is, I want to make sure that they have that, so I have no regrets, and that comes right out of the gate. Um, the fact that I knew what I wanted to do, that takes passion. You have to outwork the next guy. You have to do it in a professional way. These are all things that I teach. Did anyone teach me? No, because somehow back then, and if you talk to any broadcaster, let's say 50 to 70 years old, it was inherent. You go to the winter meetings and find out what does it take. You hope to get a mentor that just, kind of brings you through. But man, the competition was unbelievable back then. The thought of a young guy getting to AAA or the big leagues was impossible. It was never going to happen. And now, things have changed, and the business and the industry has changed. But I think if no matter what you do, anything that you choose to do, you could be working at Publix, you could be working at auto owners, but as long as you have the passion and the energy then you're going to have a good day and you're going to have a good life.
You and the Barons went separate ways after last season, but how, through the time that you spent with the Barons, how did you see Birmingham kind of evolve and change, and even the Barons organization? How did you see it change over that time?
I'm one lucky guy that really broadcasted three ballparks in one city. Now, Rickwood was going back and honoring the Rickwood Classic and honoring the tradition over there. But when you look at it, Skylar, I had two of the nicest ballparks that any minor league guy could ask for in the Hoover Met and then Regions Field. So that was something that I never took for granted. I was very, very blessed. So again, I move, 20 some odd years into my career, we moved downtown. And I know guys who've been in their 30s and 40s and 25 years with them, and they have rundown facilities and ballparks. So that definitely was a major growth. And undoubtedly, and again, I've been here since the early 90s. In the early 90s, no one from let's say Vestavia South ever went downtown. Never. We had what we wanted, what we needed, entertainment, food, etc. in the Hoover area. Okay. So if someone said, "Hey, meet me downtown," you're like, "Whoa, that's a different planet." Well, now with the construction of Regions Field and the five or six luxury apartment complexes, townhouses, condos. I've got to show people a picture of what the ballpark looked opening night. When you see a long view, you'll see no fence signs or no apartments. I'm sorry, no apartments in left center field, right field. It was just totally, had to be demolished and built up, and that's happened since we've been there. So the two ballparks, watching them grow and become really top-notch facilities, and then watching the city downtown grow and evolve and spreading back out to the suburbs. It's been a lot of fun, and it's really been good for our economy, and it's been good for our attendance.
Yeah, you're right. It's interesting how much the area around the stadium is really built up, and that'd be pretty cool to see what it looked like beforehand. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily remember. But and I might be a little biased, but I think the Barons have the best Double A stadium in all of Double A. But moving on, you spent roughly 150 days with the GOAT Michael Jordan during the 1994 season, and I'm sure you get asked a lot about that. But what is one kind of behind the scenes story that gives people a glimpse into Michael Jordan, the person?
The first thing I always tell everybody is that he really, when those small, tiny opportunities to be just a normal person, he was a normal person. Okay. Now, when you're Michael Jordan, how many minutes in an hour, how many hours in a day are you just, relaxing, sitting back, watching TV, going to a grocery store, or going to a movie? But those times when he had that, he wanted to have fun like all the other guys and like well, not like the other guys, but he was older and he always looked at them as a young him trying to get to where he had attained. Okay. And to watch that on a daily basis, how much he loved that locker room. He loved all the Barons players. He appreciated and respected the visiting players who got all the pictures and all the autographs that they wanted, as well as the home guys. But it was so rare, and I bet you have friends that he has friends rather that to this day still don't get a chance to just see him, do normal play ping pong, play Yahtzee, golf, whatever it is, and played one on one, three on three, whatever it is. We because of those 150 days, I had those opportunities, and again, he treated everybody extremely well. It wasn't as if he flaunted his money, his checkbook, or his fame, but you have to understand when you're him, everybody around you wants something from him.
I've heard stories that him and Terry Francona would be playing cards or Yahtzee into the wee hours of the morning in the clubhouse back at the Hoover Met.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, 3, 4 o'clock. Neither one of them, this is a little secret sauce. Neither one of them sleep a whole lot. I mean, to this day, they're the kind of guys that operate on very, very little sleep. And I can't speak so much for Jordan, but for Tito, he needs that energy and he needs to be around, a ballpark. He needs to be around guys to really express who he is, and he's been so special to me. I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without him. And the two of those worlds collided, and they were very, very similar.
Well, when did you know that Jordan was serious about baseball? Because this was before my time, but from what I understand, there was a lot of people that were kind of, skeptical about, is this a publicity stunt or is this something real or what
Well,
did you see there?
I thought it was a publicity stunt and skeptical. I think it's fair for me to admit that the way I broke it down, Sky, was I would tell people there's no way that the world's most famous athlete is going to get on a plane. He's going to wind up in Birmingham, Alabama, right? Then he's got to take a bus or car or whatever it is, 20 minutes to a suburb called Hoover. And then he's going to hang out with me and the rest of the team for the next 5 months. I said, you're absolutely crazy. When he finally got there, the next negative connotation was he'll be gone in 3 days. He'll be gone in a week. This will all be just, a memory. He's not going to sit on a bus and he's not going to get, $20 a day in meal money. This is, we had our fun and it was like a summer camp. And like everything the guy does, he just proves you wrong. And that was the thing that 5 months. He rode every bus. He was in every hotel we were at. He was at the weights. He was at early BP. He did everything just to prove that he can do it.
How did Tito and the rest of the team take that when they first heard that he was coming? How did you see their relationship amongst the team kind of evolve over that season too?
Well, Tito was the perfect guy. I mean, he had been a second generation big leaguer himself. His father played, he played. So he was the perfect guy to conduct this season. There's no doubt in my mind. Um, and the rest of the guys, you have 25, 26 guys, and there was a group, definitely a group of guys. It's split into thirds. One third were excited and were happy to have him and be a good teammate, and if he helped get them to the big leagues, great. There was a third that was negative, that was like, this guy, I worked my butt off through high school, through college, through travel ball, and he was just handed a double A. Okay. And then there was the ones that were somewhere in the middle. Hey, might as well get an autograph. I'm with him. Might as well get, whatever else I can get out of this. But I think I saw that myself. It was definitely, there was 8 people who believed it, 8 people who didn't believe it, and then another 8 that were kind of, let's go with the flow.
How much did you see Barron's shirts everywhere and Barron's be put on the map after Space Jam came out?
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. It's now 2025, and there's still Space Jam and Barron's and Jordan paraphernalia that is still gaining momentum, gathering a lot of money. It's never going to stop, nor should it. But there was an explosion. The only thing that would caution people is because he was assigned so late to the Barons, it wasn't as if we had a chance to really prepare for it. Okay, and that's an unknown dynamic. That with about 3 days left to go before the plane left from spring training Sarasota to Birmingham, he could have gone to Nashville. He could have quit. He could have done anyway. But about 3 days left, it was like our boss Bill Hardikoff got the call and said, "He's coming your way. You better be prepared."
I had heard, I believe that you had told me this one time that they wanted to send him to single A or something, but didn't have the necessary facilities and everything to kind of handle all the fans and all that kind of stuff. Is that true?
Well, I think we were perfect. Well, I don't. I think we were perfect because of his age. That had one thing to do with it. You can't have what was he at that time? 30-year-old in Double A. We also had the biggest locker room and training room facilities, and then the key and the trump card was that Dr. Andrews has been and was the team doctor for a long time, and of course they are based in Birmingham. So everything just was perfect. It wouldn't have fit in Kannapolis. We were in South Bend. That was there a little bit South Bend close to Chicago, but they just didn't have the facility that we did. We have at Hoover Met, they had a huge training room as much as anything else, literally, training table, room, hot tub, and all that stuff, which is, part of what you need for preparation.
What do you think he really wanted to accomplish in baseball?
Well, it's been like my goal, which is respect. That's the one thing that you want is for people to believe you and respect what you're trying to do. I don't think he had a number, but I definitely, absolutely know that he wanted to prove people wrong. And it's interesting because I would talk with the guy who wrote the story in Sports Illustrated. He did not write the headline. He makes that perfectly clear, the headline that said, "Bag it, Michael." Um, but Michael was so mad at that he banned Sports Illustrated. He wouldn't talk to them. I don't know if he does now, but he didn't. And again, now he's on a mission to prove to these people. And the thing that still to this day freaks me out is he had 3 home runs in that big ballpark at Hoover Met, and you can't fake it. You just absolutely cannot fake it. So 3 home runs, he had 50 something RBIs, he had 30 something stolen bases. He certainly accomplished more than anybody really thought he could.
Well, a few years after Jordan, one of baseball's greatest characters came through, Wally Backman. What do you remember about Wally?
Hmm.
Did he ever tell you any stories from that '86 Mets team?
Oh yeah, yeah. You'd have to ask him. He wouldn't offer it up like, oh, that reminds me of the time that me and Keith or me and Gary Carter or whatever. All you have to do is ask. But I would tell you this, in between the third base line and the first base line, one of the greatest managers I have ever been around in close to 40 years. Um, we offensively, his scheme was to attack, and we played a National League style of ball in an American League club, which means first guy gets on with a walk, he might steal second, we'll bunt him over, and then we're going to try to hit a sacrifice fly or a ground ball, and we're at 1-0. And Wally wanted to put the pressure on the other team. I wish that the stint that he had with the White Sox, and then of course it ended abruptly with the Diamondbacks. I wish the rest of the world got to see the positive things that he did. Unfortunately, in this world we live in, we're looking for the car crash, and he off the field was a car crash, and anybody could look it up, and you just see what happened. I mean, he had the Diamondbacks job for 4 days, and that went out. But man, what an incredible manager! And one thing is, as much fun as we had, we prepared like no tomorrow. Same thing with Tito. The great ones, we out prepare the next team, and with both of those guys, Francona and Wally, let it be known on this podcast that we arrived at the ballpark probably 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. We were there 2, 3 hours before the first bus, and that was all get lineups, prepare mentally, physically. For me, it was great as a broadcaster because I can get there and put all my equipment up, and I could get the starting lineups and everything that I needed, and allowed me to go out and shag flies and take BP and all this other stuff because before the first bus got there, I was already there. It was long days, you're tired, no doubt about that, but rewarding.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, as the time I spent as the clubby, that was the best time to kind of be the fly on the wall and just kind of see how these
Yeah,
guys operate and all that kind of stuff.
no
Um,
doubt.
I have two more questions for you. I'll save the
Sure.
best one for last. Um, but I wanted to ask you about one Barons player who was always my personal favorite. I got to meet him briefly when I was a kid, um, but Trace Thompson. What do you
Mm.
remember about Trace Thompson? Because apart from who his family is and his brother and everything, he just seemed like a really good dude. What do you remember about him?
He was a great guy. And the first thing is when you look at him, that is what an athlete is supposed to look like. Tall, lean, twitch. You know, Trace lasted a long, long time in baseball because of his athleticism and his character. Luckily for the Barons, he put things together in that championship that we won against the Smokies in 2013. He had a great run for us, thank goodness. He was extremely humble about him, his teaching, his family. Clay and his father, Michael, came to the ballpark like they have every year, wherever he went. And that was a lot of fun interviewing both of them. And on the field, there wasn't anything that Trace couldn't do. He could hit for power, he could run, he could throw. He just didn't have the consistency to be an impact guy at the big league level. There would be times of struggle, times of strikeouts with a big long swing, and but you still I got to add up how many games he has and how much time he has in the big leagues. It's more than you would think because he although bounced around, he always had a job, and I'm real happy he was as as famous as the family is, he's as down to earth as anybody could possibly be.
I feel like if you looked up in the dictionary MLB journeyman, Trace Thompson's picture would be there.
He would be there, but it would be, I want you to look it up and have the word class next to it too. He always did things with class and dignity, took his whole team. Our guys would get to Birmingham, and I remember that during spring training for the White Sox slash minor league Barons, the whole team went to see the Suns play Golden State or wherever they come in to play Phoenix, and his brother took care of all the tickets and all that. So yeah, it was really really neat.
Well, I wanted to ask you this last question, and my timer's running out here on my Zoom. I got 7 minutes left. On July 24th, 2022, Mr. CB made his MLB debut, calling a game for the White Sox versus the Reds, alongside Darren Jackson. Take me back through that. What was that experience like?
The call came out of nowhere from Chris Quintana, who's the director of broadcasting with the White Sox. He set me up. He put an email out, an email Zoom for all the broadcasters in the White Sox system. And he said, "Hey, we're going to do something we haven't done before. We just want to get feedback from you guys. Tell us about the players. Tell us who's doing well, things like that." Okay. So I get on the Zoom, and I kept looking at my computer, and I'm like, "Where is everybody else?" I'm like, You're not going to be late for the White Sox. I mean, this is if you want to ever broadcast for them, you better be on this thing." So I was starting to worry and wonder what was going on. And a few minutes later, Chris comes on, and then you start to look around and going, there's a some sort of prank that's going on. And then he said, "What are you doing on July 24th?" And I said, "I don't know, but it sounds pretty exciting. You tell me." And that's when he said, "Well, you're going to be doing the White Sox, and coming up here, we'll take care of the hotel, flight, and all that good stuff. And have at it, man. You're calling the game with Len Casper." So I was like, "That's pretty cool." And he said, "We have to run this by the media and our people, PR people first. Don't say anything, sit on it until we can let the word out." And so, no problem.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really glad you got to experience that. Like I said, you're a
Thank
legend
you.
in my book, and I appreciate you sharing
Thank you,
some
Skylar.
stories and talking ball with me, and appreciated working alongside you last year as well. So I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure, and may today be the best day of your life, but tomorrow be even better.
All
You've heard
right.
that before once or twice, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 30 some odd years of a sign off.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, CB.
Thank you. Have a great day.